Welcome to Unrestricted, the show where we hear from incredible women who live life on their own terms, who take care of their mind, body, and soul while building successful businesses and projects they love. I'm your host, Athena Simpson. I'm a serial entrepreneur and life and business optimization coach and educator who helps women uncover their superpowers so they can thrive at life and work without compromise. I went from being deeply depressed, self-loathing, and unhealthy to living an exciting and fulfilling life, running a business that I love. I feel stronger, healthier, and happier than I ever have before. It took a lot of work and exploration to get to this point, and I'm still learning every day. I want you to have an unfiltered view into the reality of transformation with clear, tangible takeaways that you can apply to your life and career or business to help you get more unrestricted. So put your phone into do not disturb, minimize any distractions, and let's dive into today's episode. On today's episode, you'll meet Hayleigh Bailey, founder and CVO of Give Back Digital. Tragedy struck at a young age, but from that experience, she learned lessons that supported her to discover what life was really all about when she traveled the world and got rid of all of her worldly possessions. But the real magic happened when she discovered the world of virtual assistants, which set her on the path not only to help female entrepreneurs build the back end of their businesses by creating streamlined systems, but to create her own agency to help them have an aligned team. She's hit multiple six figures, but not without learning what to say goodbye to and a little bit of faking it until she made it. In this episode, you'll hear her courageous story, as well as hear the similarities in the lessons between tragedy and starting a business, the importance of exploration, and the crucial lesson in revenue versus profit. Strap in. You're in for a breathtaking and enlightening ride. Hello. Welcome to Unrestricted. I am so excited for today's guest. This conversation is going to blow your mind. So guys, please help me and welcome Hayleigh to the show. Hello.
Hi there. I'm really excited to be on here with you and chat about some real stuff in the biz.
Yes, I'm super excited. So before we dive into the story, which I'm like dying to hear the full version, I've gotten some previews, but just let our audience know who you are, what you do, and where you are.
Cool. Yeah. So my name is Hayleigh Bailey, as I was just introduced, and that is a real name. My name rhymes. It's on my birth certificate. So, and I am what I like to call an online business optimizer. Some of you might know it as an online business manager. And I own a digital service agency for female entrepreneurs and coaches. So we offer services anywhere from low-level virtual assisting all the way up to project management, online business management, strategy, consultating, and launches, building the back end of your business. Anything that has to do with building the back end of your business.
Amazing. And you're currently in Tulum.
I'm currently in Tulum, Mexico.
Yes. Okay. So I've gotten a preview of the story and I can't wait to hear the full version. This is going to blow your mind, guys. So tell me about when the original trajectory you were on shifted for you.
Yeah, sure. So I was in college. I think, about 22 years old. I was in my final years of college. I had a couple years left because I took a gap year as well. And I was studying environmental science and geology, and being a normal early 20s year old, partying and having fun and doing all the things. And my boyfriend had an accident. He had a diving accident. He was hanging out with friends one day at the beach and hit his head and crushed his C5 vertebrae. So he was paralyzed from the shoulders down. And this was big, obviously. And for the next almost 2 years of my life, I quit my job. I was working as a cleaner. So I was doing high-end kind of white glove cleaning for rich people, essentially, in their nice fancy mansions. And I quit that and I dropped out of school and I took care of him full time. And my life shifted. It went from everything is normal and dandy to, wow, life can end at any second. Like something can change in an instant. And seeing him go through what he went through and watching multiple times him face the potential of death, honestly, in multiple moments throughout his rehabilitation, that first 4.5 months was just this shift for me, this major shift of like, you need to enjoy life and you need to enjoy it to the fullest. And there are ways for us to enjoy our lives that we're not being told about. Mm-hmm. And part of that came just from what we were being told in the hospital, right? That he was never going to walk again and he was never going to do these things again. And in my mind, I was just like, not taking these answers for what they were. And I wanted to change that. I wanted to help him walk again and do fun things again. And I committed the next 2 years of my life to changing myself and making optimizing myself, my being, so that I could support him in hopefully regaining his old life back. And in that 2 years, I found yoga and I took my first 200-hour, 10-month-long yoga teacher training. And that was really what inspired me to take control over my own life and create the life that I always wanted. After my 200-hour, I signed up for a 300-hour in Rishikesh, India, and I bought a one-way ticket. At this time, me and my boyfriend at the time were kind of already on the outs and not really sure if we were going to make it. So when I went traveling, I would say like I was single at the time. I was single by the time I was traveling. And I got to Rishikesh, India, and I met and fell in love with a digital nomad. And this is the first time I had ever heard of this term. So it started out kind of as like, I want to make my life special and worth living. And then it turned into kind of mysteriously finding my way into digital nomadism. And that kind of is what sparked my journey towards entrepreneurship and building my own business.
Wow, that's amazing. And I was just thinking while you were saying that, like how much of your energy must go into taking care of somebody in that state, right? But it sounds like you were looking at your own self-care too. So I'm curious how you even, and at such a young age as well, to know that you needed to like manage your own energy and like fill up your own cup. So like, how did you even come across yoga, or what was that like?
Yeah, in times like this, in a very like traumatic event like this, sometimes you don't even realize that you're living in trauma, essentially. And it's also in these moments where you find the most strength that you never thought you had, right? Like they always talk about how you could lift a car off of somebody that you loved when they were in danger because of the adrenaline that's pumping through you. And I feel like that kind of resonates with what my experience was. Essentially was my body kicked into overdrive of like, I need to optimize everything I'm doing. I stopped drinking. I stopped going out with friends. I like completely committed myself to like a healthy lifestyle so that I could be healthy and available to give my energy to him, to help him regain his life again. And it wasn't until I actually got to India that I really realized and had these, like in the first few weeks, that, oh my gosh, I haven't had time to actually pause from all this for the past like almost 2 years of my life. I've been living in trauma, and I didn't realize that I was living in this trauma until I removed myself from it. And then it was time to heal.
Yeah. So I'm curious, did he regain his ability to walk again?
He did not, but he regained a lot of other things. I think that's something that I learned throughout this process too, is like the littlest things that he was able to accomplish, like moving his thumb a little bit or eating by himself for the first time, which is like such huge successes that we don't typically celebrate because they seem so small. But for us, it was like this moment to really be like, these small things are really important. People would come in and say, hey, has anything changed? And I'd be like, oh, like, yeah, totally. Like, you should see how much he can do now. But to them, it was like not that big of a difference because they didn't see each day all the little changes that were happening, all the little things that he can do now, like transfer himself from his wheelchair to his bed. You know, he designed and was featured on Xbox for designing a adaptable Xbox controller. He's an engineer, so he did design this controller that he can use to play Xbox now. And he can eat on his own and breathe on his own, and he has more muscles in his abdomen and his arms. Like, there's so many things that he regained over time, and so many things that we like gained spiritually and mentally as well through this.
It's interesting while you were explaining the little things and people asking and them not seeing like the progress, you know, I feel like that's the pressure that entrepreneurs feel constantly. Like when you start a business, right? People are like, how's the business going? You know, and they're expecting you to just like have a, you know, 6-figure business overnight. And you're like, I'm doing so much, but to you, like, and then you feel bad because you're like trying to explain it like, yeah, I did this and this and this. And they're like, what? Like people that don't run businesses don't get it. And I know that might be like totally insensitive to like compare it to that, but you know, the struggles that we go through and these things in life, and just a realization that like really minor wins are worth celebrating and worth embracing. I was just really like feeling that like from you, and probably why you're such an amazing entrepreneur now is like going through that process already with someone, and you know, not viewing him not getting back to like what he was before as a failure, but actually like the wins along the way, you know, along the journey.
Totally not insensitive whatsoever. The lessons that I learned and the experiences that I had throughout this entire journey with him have rippled throughout my life and made me appreciate things and look at things in a different way, because I watched somebody lose everything and watched them have to slowly try and get those things back. And it was the most incredible, most rewarding experience of my life. And it has everything to do with the strength that I have today, my ideas, the way I see the world. It was such a big impact. And he was such an important person to me. And we shared this incredible experience, and it totally does ripple into everything that you do, including business. Of, you know, some days we get so frustrated with ourselves of like, why am I not far enough? Why am I not far enough along? Like, I thought after this much time I would be here. And we forget to look back and see how far we've come, right? We only look ahead to see how far away we are from where we think we should be. In reality, we should actually be looking back and saying, wow, look how far I've come. Look how many things have changed. Look how my business is today compared to how it was 1 month, 2 months, 1 year ago.
Yeah, I love that. I actually had to have a similar discussion with one of my groups in my coaching program, you know, because they were all like, like frustrated, I'm not there. And I was like, can you just take a beat and look at like everything that you've done? You know, it's just like, they're not drinking, they have morning routines, they have movement in their life, like all of these things, and like that were so hard for them to do before, and now it's just like normal, that's just standard. I'm like, this, like most people can't even stop drinking for a couple days, you know, like you've done this for months and you're not even like phased by it. So I love that. And okay, so I feel like I'm about to like get my own version of like modern day eat, pray, love, right? Like, okay, you had this like amazing 2-year experience taking care of someone and helping them get to the point, you know, that they could live their life, maybe not the way it was before. You've gone off to discover yourself. You've gone to India. You've met a digital nomad and fell in love. Your world has opened up. What happened next?
Yeah, so obviously at this point I had just done my 300-hour yoga teacher training. So I was like full, like, I'm going to be a yoga teacher. And I also had this kind of plan laid out that I was on a 6-month sabbatical of sorts. Like, I had no intentions of not going back home or not working or whatever it was. I was like, this is a 6 months sabbatical. I've saved up enough money to just leave my life behind for 6 months and explore. like inside and outside, travel through Southeast Asia. And what ultimately ended up happening was being a traveling yoga teacher isn't as lucrative as it might sound. I know some people out there make it look really easy. They've got thousands of followers on Instagram, but actually traveling, kind of starting out that way as a yoga teacher versus like, you know, getting a few years teaching in a studio, experience teaching in a studio, then, you know, it's a different path for sure. So you're teaching at hostels and you're teaching at hotels and like little things like that. And usually you're getting some sort of exchange, like, hey, you can stay here for free, or you can get your meals covered or something like that. There's not a lot of money in it. And eventually my pockets were starting to get a little light. And so at that time it was like, okay, I'm going to go home. I'm going to sell all my stuff. Like I'm going to sell everything. I'm going to work a little bit, make a little bit more money. And then I'm going to go back out there and I'm going to try again. So me and my beloved, we came back home to Portland, Oregon, where I'm originally from. And we literally sold like everything I own. And I worked for a little bit. I was teaching in a studio in Portland and working at a little bit cleaning as well, doing some of the old cleaning stuff. And then it came time to leave again. I actually sold my car too, which was really big for me because my car was like my baby. It's what I associated my freedom with. I grew up with it and like, it just was so hard to let it go. And this was like, I'm really leaving this time. Like if I'm selling my car, like I don't have a car to come back to, then I know that this is it. And so I sold my car. I went to Lake Atitlan in Guatemala and I kind of got this volunteer position at the lake. And during that time, I started working on a project that blossomed this new passion, and that was a retreat. And that's when I started running retreats. And even with the retreats happening, it still wasn't a lot to sustain me. So there was this moment of like, I love traveling. My beloved loves traveling. We want to keep traveling the world. We love doing this. This just fills us up. But like, I hate having to worry about money. I hate having to like feel like, where is my next paycheck coming from, and not have that security while I travel. And then it was kind of time. I was like, okay, I'm ready. Because to me, it was like at the time, if I started freelancing or working online, it meant that I was giving up my other dreams as like a yoga teacher and a retreat facilitator, but it actually didn't mean that at all. It actually changed everything for me. And it was those things that gave me support and direction in how I created my business online. So I became a virtual assistant, and I actually started targeting virtual assistant clients that worked in the industry I was familiar with. So health and wellness, yoga teachers, women that were making a positive impact in some way. And those are the people that I targeted to start working with. And yeah, that really sparked the whole rest of the journey for me. I got into a groove. I understood what their needs were. I understood how to build their businesses, and that birthed my agency. I replicated that method. I taught my contractors how to do that method. And now we have this huge multiple six-figure agency that supplies top tier virtual assisting services for female entrepreneurs in a very, very beautiful, specific way.
I love that. I love that. Okay. So real quick definition, and then I want to ask you a few things or dive into a few things that you mentioned. Can you just explain for those people that might not know what it is? Like, what is a virtual assistant?
Yeah, definitely. Such a good question too. I get this all the time because really it's such a broad term, right? A virtual assistant can be any type of assistance, some assistance in digital services, essentially. So you can be somebody that is, you know, helping with email management, helping with email marketing. It could also be somebody that's helping in the e-commerce world, somebody that's doing personal assistance. They're just doing it virtually. So some of the things that my contractors, my virtual assistants do for their clients range from email management all the way to social media management, just organizing things, client onboarding, creating systems, just whatever streamlines and makes the business more efficient by plugging in their assistants in a sort of way.
We're going to dive into that a little bit more, but first I want to go back to point out a few things that I'm seeing a lot of similarities in the women that I'm speaking to, and this importance of exploration. You said you took 6 months to explore, and how crucial do you think that was to your success now, taking that time and space to just go off and be like, I've got 6 months runway, I'm going to go, India, travel, that sort of thing?
It's crucial. It's crucial for sure. I don't know if you guys know what Enneagram's in, but I am an Enneagram 3, which means like I am after success. And up until I left on that 6-month sabbatical, I worked from the day I turned 16. I was always after the next challenge. I was always trying to be the best and do the best and find the next thing that could fill my cup. And the 6 months, which actually turned into about a year and a half before I actually went back to work, was a time to pause, a time to cry and to hurt and to feel everything I needed to feel that I was suppressing or restricting or resisting for years and years of my life. And this was the first step to unraveling that, right? Of really truly understanding that if we wind ourselves super, super tight, we miss out on the experience. We're so focused on what our life should look like, or how productive we should be, or how successful we should be. And we miss out on what that actually is supposed to feel like. Mm-hmm. Feeling happy, feeling fulfilled. And this 6 months was crucial for that, because it allowed me to pause and take a step back and be like, I don't need to be productive all the time. I can lay in bed and read a book all day, and that is productive, right? So it really gave me this opportunity to explore who I was as a person, how I interacted with the world around me, and what I actually wanted to do with my life, rather than just follow some kind of consistent laid out path of go to college, get a degree, get a job, get a husband, have kids, all those things. This really gave me the opportunity to challenge those things and look for other ways to live my life.
I love that. And I love the selling all this stuff. I did that myself when I left London, and I learned my lesson the first time when I left LA to move to London, and I put all my belongings into storage, because I was like, if this relationship doesn't work out, I don't want to be left with nothing. And then the relationship didn't work out. I stayed in London, and I had a storage unit of shit back in LA that I paid for 2 years before I could go and clear it out, So then when I left London, I was like, nope, you got to get rid of everything this time. And the way you were talking about your car, being your baby and the thing that was so important to you, that's how I felt about my bed. I was like, I had this 4-poster scaffold steel, beautiful Euro king size bed, and the top line Tempur-Pedic mattress, and the sheets that I liked, and the pillows that I liked, and the comforter that I liked. And I was like, I don't know if I can let this go. I was legit considering putting this thing into storage. And I had to finally just be okay, do the math, because it was massive, right? So I needed a big storage unit just to be able to house this thing. So how many months before you're paying more for the storage than this thing costs? And I was like, I think it ended up being 8 months. And I was like, oh. So I ended up putting it on eBay, and some Eastern European dude bought it. And I'm pretty sure sent some people out all the way from the country that he was at to pick up my mattress and take it back to Eastern Europe somewhere, it was just crazy. But I'm so glad I did, because I haven't been back to London. It's been over 2 years now. And the reason why I went on that whole tangent was, I think it's so important to, when we're wanting to figure out what our calling is, what our purpose is, what we want to do with our lives, to find out what our happy place is, to release as many tethers as possible, because we don't realize energetically like how having this stuff, having these things that we're paying for, having, the car payments, or making sure that somebody's looking after your car or the bed or whatever, like it's just these energetic tethers and ties to things that's draining us from being able to just put everything into what it is that we're doing. And also reducing all the expenses is like, then you can live on little, because we don't have the flat, we don't have all the shit that we're paying to house and that sort of thing. So
yeah, totally. I feel like it was my first introduction to letting go. And that's a challenging thing to do, especially when we attach so much of ourselves to our possessions. And there was so many things where I was like, oh, but what about this? Like, maybe I'll just keep it in my like one little box that I'm going to have, which would eventually turn into a lot of other boxes if I kept doing that. And my partner at the time was, you could come back and get these things again. Things will always exist. And when you just free yourself of them and tell yourself that you don't need these things, the things that are supposed to come back to you will. And it's a beautiful thing. It's similar to what I tell a lot of my girls that come through my coaching program is when you're looking at something, you see like the next step as a risk. And you're thinking about taking that risk and doing something outside of like your normal box, right? What would your life look like if you didn't take that risk? And then what would your life look like if you did take that risk? And then what would your life look like if you took that risk and then you failed? Most commonly, the answer is to that last question is it would probably just go back to looking exactly like your life did before. So do you really want to sit back and not take the chance, not take the risk to do something that might change your life in a really positive way, when if you fail, you're just going to be back where you started? It's not that you're going to be much, much further back. You may lose some things along the way, but the reality is most often is you're probably just going to be back where you started. So it's always worth the risk, and in my opinion, at least.
Yeah, I say this all the time to anybody that wants to start a business. Like, the worst case scenario, if the business doesn't work out, is that you have to go and get a job. Like,
yeah,
how great that you have skills that you can go and get hired in a second. What kind of safety blanket is that? Not a lot of people have that, So if you're working now, if you're in employment now and you want to go and start a business, like the worst thing that's going to happen to you is you have to go and get another job. And you know what? Most successful entrepreneurs have multiple failed. I don't consider it a failure that you fucking spend time, energy, money putting something out and learning. It's like a real world MBA. So it doesn't quite work out, but whatever, you learn and you learn and you learn, and it's like, then you're going to get the thing. So okay, you might have to go back and work for someone else. What a horrible prospect. People aren't going to laugh at you because they're all scared and not able to do the same thing. And the entrepreneurs are going to be like, I've been there, So I love that. So what was the timeline? Okay, so when was the selling the stuff in Portland, and what was the distance between then and deciding that you were going to start this business?
So I sold all my stuff in late 2017. I was in Guatemala by March 2018. And then I started virtual assisting in December that year of 2018. And then I started my virtual assisting agency in July of 2019. So now we're in October of 2021. And I think I hit my first 6 figures in a little over a year, about a year, I would say.
Amazing. That's really great, actually. Before we dive into the business, because I do want to spend some time there, just can you share, like, okay, how did you come across virtual assisting, and then how did you learn how to do it?
Yeah, so my partner is a freelance coach. He actually coaches people how to freelance on Upwork. He's one of the best freelancing coaches on the market. So he kind of was the one that told me about virtual assisting. It's like the gateway to the remote work world, if you will. it's one of the easiest entry points into getting into remote work and starting to kind of explore the online world of like what works for me and what do I want to do. So he's the one that kind of first introduced it to me. And after I was like, hey, I'm ready to go online, that was just the easiest entry point. At that point, I did a little bit of training in social media marketing with a startup that I was volunteering for. So I kind of got to know a little bit about virtual assisting or social media management with them. But really, when I got online and started freelancing, it was a fake it till you make it kind of situation. It was like, I'm going to take a couple tutorials here and kind of understand what I'm getting into. And then when the job comes, I'm just going to research what I need to do and then do the job and learn as I go. And that's exactly how I did it. So it's definitely one of those things where you can fake it till you make it.
I love that. It's a hustle, right? But okay, so end of 2018 was when you started the virtual assisting. And yes. What, like 7-8 months later, you started an agency. So what happened in that 7 to 8 months that you decided, like, actually, I need to create an agency now?
Yeah, I think mostly it was just my entrepreneurial spirit, that Enneagram 3 peeking through, like wanting to be successful and wanting to build something that, I wouldn't have to work as much and I could travel freely. Like my idea at this time was like, oh, I'm going to build this agency and have all these contractors and I won't have to work as much over time and I'll just have money coming in passively. And boy, oh boy, was I in for a surprise.
Tell me about that.
Yeah, curious. I'll tell you all about it. Yeah, I met my dream client about 3 or 4 months into working as a virtual assistant. I think it was about 4 months in, I met my soulmate client. She's a business coach. And we just worked so well together and she loved me. And I just like got to see the back end of her business, got to see the inner workings of it. And she just was one of those people where there was no stupid questions. And she was willing to teach me everything. And she had an OBM at the time too. So that was my first time hearing about like OBM, like, oh, there's a way for me to grow and scale within this. Like there's higher positions for me here within this market. And the OBM really helped me to learn her processes so that I could do them. And eventually I just moved up in her business. I moved into project management, like being kind of the one that knew all the things, the inner workings of the business, and then into online business management. OBM stands for online business management. And it's essentially your like sidekick in your business. They are the people that kind of run your business for you, or together with you, essentially, so that you have kind of a right hand to be running the show, be running the team, be running the operations or the marketing or whatever department of your business you want that OBM to be managing. There are many, many, many different types of OBMs. I've even worked with clients that had up to 8 OBMs in their business because they had them working on 8 different sections of their business. So yeah, I just grew into that position. And because she was a business coach, very early on, I kind of told her like, hey, I have this kind of idea and dream that I want to build an agency. And she was like, that's great. I'm going to send people your way. So, just from her being so well known in the industry, inside her masterminds, inside her group program, she's always talking about, you should hire a virtual assistant if you want to grow and scale. That essentially is what grew my agency, was just referrals from her and then referrals from the people that she referred to me. There were also a variety of different coaches, business coaches and things like that, that were also recommending me to their students and their clients. And yeah, that's how my business was built, was on referrals. I think still to this day, about 80 to 90% of my clients come from referrals.
That's incredible. And also I'm curious how going from virtual assistant to OBM to running an agency and having a lot of referrals coming your way. I'm assuming there was some learnings in this experience for you.
Absolutely. In fact, in this time of learning all these things, I got to a point where I was like, especially with my client, where we hit a wall with each other, where her business was now growing so much. And I didn't have any experience with growing a 7-figure business at that point. I had experience managing a multiple 6-figure business, her business, essentially. But had I done it many, many times, had I developed this method for people where they could come to me and I would be like, hey, here's how we're going to fix this, I was just learning as I was going. So we actually hit this point where I was like, hey, I don't think I'm actually equipped to support you in the way that you need support now. And I'm actually hindering you from your growth because I'm still learning and I'm still figuring this stuff out. And we kind of very lovingly acknowledged that it was time to split paths. And she actually stayed with my agency, stayed working with my girls. She still has one of my virtual assistants to this day, but she moved on and hired out other agencies, other OBMs, other sorts of management and strategists like that to kind of help her get to that next level. And what that gave me the opportunity to do was then dive fully into my agency and really be present for my agency and growing it and understanding like the ins and outs of growing a business to the nth degree. And I'm still learning all the time. This is a practice for everyone, right? And when people hire us, we're practicing things together when we're intending that our practice is sufficient enough to get this client to the next level, right? And sometimes that's not always the case. So it was tough to go from virtual assistant to OBM because there's also that barrier of now I'm going from somebody that is a worker and getting lots of instruction to now needing to be a leader in her business. And she was such a strong leader that was very challenging for me to step into. I felt this resistance of like, hey, how do I run these calls? How do I dictate these things? It was challenging. She actually loved, just loved working with me so much and saw the potential in investing in her team and growing her team that she purchased about 75% of an online business management certification program for me. And I went through that while working for her.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah.
I love hearing stories of leaders that see the value of like investing in their team and also getting them to the point where they can like go and do their own thing, It's this new form of leadership that I think is so important and something that I talk about a lot, right? Like the leader needs to be in a good place themselves because people feel valued when the leader that they see is taking care of themselves and knows the value of taking care of themselves. So they then encourage other people to do that and also see the value in supporting people to achieve their dreams, right? And we end up having like much happier people and much better relationships in that way. I was thinking while you were talking about, parting ways and that sounded like a beautiful, really understanding and caring situation. But I was wondering, and maybe you've had this thought or not, but had you stayed with her, would you have been able to get your business to 6 figures as quickly as you did?
Probably not, honestly, probably not. I was overwhelmed. I was doing way too much. I was stressed out. I was running 2 businesses essentially. And I didn't actually realize how much stress it was causing me until I stopped doing it. And I decided to take a breath and be like, hey, it's time to do this whole process again of like unwinding all this like tension that I had built up from thinking I can do it all and be it all. She even asked me in our parting of ways that, do you think you're going to take on another OBM client? And it was a really good question. She's an amazing leader. She really is. And I honestly was like, no, I don't think I am. I think this was a lot and it's time for me to just put my energy into my agency and then we'll come back to OBM stuff later if that feels good. I was really resistant to coming back to it for a long time because of that experience. Like I truly was a little bit traumatized from trying to hold together a 7-figure business. And I just recently finally started getting back into OBM work again and have approached it in such a different way. And like, it was through coming back to it that I actually realized how traumatized I was for it before and why I was so resistant to coming back to it. But now I'm in such a better place. I'm like finding clients that like, I know I can support them. I know I can build their businesses. I know that I have what it takes to help them get to that next phase.
Yeah, I totally get the traumatizing, right? Like usually the reason why we left something is because we were traumatized in the first place, you know, no matter how caring or loving that it might have been in your situation. And one of the things I see time and time again with the women that come and work with me is like, they're so traumatized from like burning themselves out that they're terrified of putting like any structure or processes in place again. So it's like we go from one extreme to the other and just like, oh my God, like I'm afraid to work, or I'm afraid to start a business, or I'm afraid, you know, like that I'm just going to end up back there and burning myself out again. So it's like, you know, we have to kind of step away from things sometimes and rebuild ourselves from the ground up, you know, and create new practices. And like, what is the thing that nourishes me? And then you realize the knowledge that you have and also how to approach something again from a place of, okay, I know what to look out for because I've like been in that situation before. So I'm coming with the knowledge that I can spot it this time and also know that it's important for me to make sure I'm looking after myself first and making a decision that's like in my highest first, right?
You know, it reminds me of the analogy that you used last night at the meetup that we were at. I loved it where you were talking about an athlete getting injured. You can't have that athlete go back to doing the same thing that they were doing before, or they're going to re-injure themselves, right? And it doesn't necessarily mean like you have to throw out the whole workout plan. It's that the way you approach it needs to be different because we need to avoid the way that you got injured before. And I see this a lot with my clients, especially like, I have a very unique perspective because I'm also helping other women grow their businesses. And I'm the person that gets real with them, right? Of like, this takes work. You hear from everyone like, hire a virtual assistant. They'll make all your problems go away and they'll take all this stuff off your plate. And that's just not the reality. The reality is like, now you're a CEO. Now you have to train and manage your team and be a leader and know how to delegate and create systems that are going to support you to create that structure so that you can flow within it, right? I always use this analogy of a vine, especially because I work with lots of women that are feminine embodiment coaches and they want to be in flow and all this stuff. And I tell them, think of your flow, your femininity as a vine. That vine can only get so far without a structure to climb, right? Scaffolding or a building or something like that. So we have to have some sort of structure that really supports us so that we can have that flow, that creativity to just blossom, right? Roots in the ground so that we can branch out and spread our light.
I love that. The flow thing, like I always giggle about it because I get it. I understand why people do it, you know, like they're terrified of going back to that, you know, like burnout, not having any time for themselves. So it's like we revert back to this flow. And I mean, I posted some comedy stuff about this in my stand-up comedy set about my week of being in flow. And it was like the most stressed I'd been since I'd been in Tulum. I was like, there's like a million decisions to make every day. And like, I don't even know if I did anything good with my day because I didn't make a decision about what I was going to do with my day before I started. So I just ended up feeling like, I don't like flow. I don't like flow. And serendipitously at the same time, Adam Grant, an organizational psychologist, posted a study that the optimal amount of free time in a day is 2 to 5 hours. So if we have less than 2 to 5 hours of free time a day, then we're in like the burnout stage. And if we have more than that, then we lose our sense of purpose, right? And productivity. So yeah, flow is something I could get into a lot, but I want to chat about when we first met and we were talking about 6-figure businesses. You were like, yeah, and the difference between revenue and profit, right? And you got an inside look into this. So we're constantly like bombarded with like, I have a 6-figure business, or I grew my business to 6 figures in 3 months and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, it doesn't work like that. A, B, there's some other stuff to bear in mind. So you can have a 6-figure revenue business, but break this down for us. Take us to school.
Yeah. So, what I do inside businesses is I build the structures and the systems and then supply them with a team that's going to work within those systems, which requires money. So technically, yeah, these businesses are making 6 figures, multiple 6 figures, 7 figures sometimes, but oftentimes the actual profit that they bring home is nowhere near that, right? Especially for somebody that's running an agency. An agency cost like my own has extremely high costs, expenses. And sometimes the profit margin of that is, anywhere between 20 to 30% at an agency model where you have like a team basically that's supporting you. Inside a regular normal coaching business or, info products and things like that, depending on the nature of that business, how it's structured, how they make their sales, typically, if you're making less than $1 million a year, your expenses are typically up near between 40 and 50%. And if you're making over $1 million a year, your expenses are a minimum of 50%. So that's the general rule of thumb when you're looking at building one of these online businesses. So when you see that 6 figures, remember that, yes, there is something to be proud of here because they are technically pulling in that amount of money. For sure. They are definitely attracting that abundance into their containers. But at the same time, it's not just that one singular purpose there. That wealth is being spread out over a marketing team, an operations team. There's very few and far between people out there that do it by themselves. I probably have met in my lifetime maybe 1 or 2 people that made $1 million by themselves, like just for having a good product go viral or something like that, where it's really kind of a lucky thing. And most often, there's a lot of hard work that goes into it. And it doesn't look like a 4-hour work week with a bunch of virtual assistants from the Philippines that you're paying $200 a month, right? That is the minority, I promise you. More often in those first couple of years of business, you're working between, 8 to 10 hour days sometimes. You are paying this person and that person, and your mind's all over the place. Like, it takes a bit to kind of get the things underneath of you. Some people start a little bit differently. They get support early, like I did. I actually got a lot of support in the beginning. But sometimes it's a fumble game. You're fumbling those first few years, and you're probably not bringing home a lot of. I was just working with a very, very big client of mine. Her first year, she was so excited. She did $100,000 that year. And then she looked at her profit and it was less than 30K. That happens sometimes.
I love the nod to Tim Ferriss. I like to think of like the female Tim Ferriss, right? Like, I'm like experimentation and optimization and like all the things. I'm just like obsessed. And he even says himself, like, how the book kind of like surprised him that took off the way it did, and how he like systematically worked to distance himself from like the 4-hour work week. Because it's not necessarily a reality for most people. I truly think that we should be spending 25 to 30 hours a week on our business, on the premise that we have trained ourselves to really be able to do like high quality work within that time, high quality strategic work. And in order to access those levels of high quality strategic work, we need to know what we're doing in those sessions. We need to train ourselves to be able to do that. Our body, mind, soul needs to be running at optimal level, which is why I'm so passionate about doing the work that I do, because I burned out royally on business number 1, on business number 2, like broke down, like showed up for the marathon of entrepreneurship, untrained. I tried to go at it like full speed, and it's like, there is so much that comes up when we start businesses. Like, all of your demons come up. And also when you don't have somebody else telling you what to do, it's like, you need to be the one to decide, like, what am I doing today? How am I structuring my day? am I going to feed myself? Am I going to move my body? And like actually making sure that we have all of that in place, and like the balance means that we're not burning out, because if we burn out when we're starting a business, guess what happens to the business? Like we're the driving force behind it. So I'm not sure if you've seen this with your clients or not, or the differences between people that are like taking care of themselves versus the ones that are like, I need to work 14 hours a day until I make this a 6-figure business. And even when you make it a 6-figure business, your profit's like 20, 30K. And if you're in that constant like, mode, you're probably not being strategic enough to think about like, how could I actually optimize my profits here?
Absolutely. I find that no matter who it is, they always come back to, every successful coach, entrepreneur that I've worked with, that I've seen, they always typically have a moment in their life where, okay, I started making all this money. I'm really well off now. I made it. And I feel like shit because I'm stressed out. This takes a lot of my life. My relationships are suffering. My body's suffering. My mind's suffering from this. And more often than not, they come back to what is going to create balance for me? How can I optimize my business and only have to work this many hours? And when I'm working, I'm doing things that really energize me, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is an exercise that I take all my high level clients through. We have them fill out a spreadsheet that says, what are you doing? Can you only be doing this, or can this be outsourced? And does it energize you? Does it drain you? Or is it kind of neutral? And then how much time do you spend on that thing? And then based on this kind of exercise that we do, we try to eliminate things that are draining them. Because what's happening there is you're actually wasting your best energy, right? And you're wasting it on things that, number one, you could probably pay somebody a lot less to do. That is totally fine with doing that thing. And number two, what it's going to actually feel like in your life when you get rid of those 20 extra hours of things that were draining you, it's going to feel like you got 40 hours back, really.
Mm-hmm.
Double or triple the amount of hours back, because they were making you feel awful. Like it was like walking through mud to get them done. So that's really what I try to focus on in my business. Is I take this approach of, okay, we want to reach these goals, but tell me how you want to feel, because that's important too. And you're not going to feel that way if you're working 100 hours a week, or 80 hours a week, or whatever it is. You're going to feel that way when you have time to breathe, you have time to take space. So let's focus on those things. And like I said, more often than not, my entrepreneurs that go through this like 1 to 2 years of just work, get the numbers, sell the things, they always come back to, I think I just want to do a couple launches per year and sell this thing passively and only work 20 to 30 hours per week. And then, I'll be good. I don't need to make millions of dollars. If I do, that's great, but I'm doing fine how I am. And actually, I feel much better when I'm not focused on those numbers, because we have different types of currencies, right? We have financial, monetary currency. We have social currency, emotional currency, mental currency. My business doesn't just provide me with an income, it makes me feel good. I love working with my team. I love coming to work every day. And it fills me up in so many different ways, and not just monetarily. Like I can truly say at the end of the day that, yeah, I made this amount of money, but also we did this really cool thing today. We had this really cool communication exercise. We found this new system. Like there are things that fill me up that happen in my day that doesn't necessarily need to be a money thing. So that's what we try to focus on, is like, how can we cultivate a space in your business and in your life where they kind of like come together a little bit, and you're touching on multiple types of currencies in your life.
Yeah, I love that. Money is a renewable resource and time is not. So any ways that we can be finding, how do we optimize our time and optimize our lives? So I'm curious, break down what your business is and does now. What are the different aspects of it for those that are interested in where you got to and what the journey was?
Yeah. Yeah. So we kind of have a full service boutique suite of different things happening over at Give Back Digital is its name. The reason why I call it Give Back Digital is because we work with female entrepreneurs that are making a positive impact on people or the planet in some way. So really, we want to give back to those people that are giving back, right? We want to support them so that their message can reach further, so that it can make greater impact on the world and people. And what we do to do that is our main jam, which is virtual assisting services. So we actually have a really unique process where we try and pair you up with your unicorn, your virtual assistant that's going to be your best friend. So we don't just look at like, oh, like, here's what you need. Here's this person that has this skill set. We actually look at their personality. We look at their Enneagrams. We look at a lot of different components that will make that match a dream come true. So it's, and actually the way we do it that's unique is we actually promote the client to the virtual assistants versus just pairing them up. So the virtual assistants actually have to come forward and say, this looks really cool to me. This looks really exciting to me. I can learn from this. I can grow from working with this person. And that's how we kind of match them up. And we also have project managers. We have a very special package that we sell that people love. They just buy them off the shelves. We don't even market them because they go so quickly. And that's the Dream Team package, where we actually jump into your business. We help you set up some of those systems to integrate your virtual assistant in, so that those sticky things that come up in those first few months, we provide you a foundation to either avoid them altogether or navigate them more easeful. So, communication channels, and how do we delegate tasks, and how do we discuss time management? We kind of create the structure for that so that you're successful in managing your new team. And then beyond that, we have some higher level packages like OBM consulting and OBM like VIP packages, where I actually come into your business, myself or my business partner, and we actually assess like, hey, what are your goals here? What are the systems and structures that we need to put in place in order to get from point A to point B? What are the challenges that we're going to face in that journey? And how can we navigate those things? So I really am looking for ways to optimize, streamline, systemize, automate, create processes, anything that's going to support them in reaching their dreams, their goals. And then we have a couple other things too, like building onboarding systems, and we create launch strategy blueprints too, since we work with lots of coaches who do launching. We also kind of go one-on-one with them and provide them with some templates and things, and kind of strategically make their launch for them of like, hey, these are all the things that actually need to happen, which is a whole nother topic, because sometimes we see these people launch things so effortlessly, we don't realize how much actually goes into those. So we make it a little bit easier by creating a blueprint for their launch. So yeah, those are all the things. I'm sure I'm missing some in there.
I feel like I was just talked dirty too. I was like, kept using words. So I was like, optimize and systemize structures. Like, love it. So I have two questions for you, actually. Do you support people that want to be virtual assistants? Is that something your agency also does, or you want them to be like fully ready when they come to you? Or how does that side of finding these virtual assistants work, or becoming a virtual assistant, if anybody's interested in doing that?
Yeah, we have a really unique hiring process. So we actually do hire virtual assistants that have experience, but we also have a course that we take people through in a group coaching program. So if you go through our course, or you go through our group coaching program, which we just did our first live version of it back in August, then you kind of are like prepped for being able to apply for our agency, essentially. So we do it kind of one of both ways. You can either train with us and get those skills and then work with us, or you can come in as already having experience. And we have a very unique way that we go through our hiring process to make sure that we find the best virtual assistants out there.
Amazing. I love that. So for anybody listening, it's like, okay, I want to do this digital nomad thing. And like, I don't even know what business that I would do. Virtual assisting is like a really great way to like, sustain yourself and do that work while you also think about like, what is it that I genuinely want to do? And you get to work with amazing business women at the same time, right? Or, I mean, like if they
Yeah.
were with your agency, amazing business women, but virtual assisting is something they could take your training program and do other things too if they wanted, I'm assuming.
Yeah. And I mean, think of it also, this is a great piece of advice for if you're wanting to be a virtual assistant, is also think about the things that you're wanting to do and try to work for those people. If you're wanting to get into health and wellness coaching, or you're wanting to get into social media management, like try to find those people that are already doing that thing. Because essentially what you're doing is becoming an entry level person to your dream job. You're learning from them, you're understanding the back end of the business, what it takes to grow that business. It's a great entry point. And yeah, it's an amazing niche job. It teaches you so much about yourself and what you want to do remotely. And it's a big trend right now. Like we have this pandemic that we've been facing. A lot of people are going remote and they're just not being able to rely on the old brick and mortar way of working. And this is a great way to get into the remote work world, is to just dip your toes in with virtual assisting.
I love that. Okay. And now my other question, as a business owner or like an online coach, right? Like when is the time for someone to start thinking about, I need a virtual assistant or I need an OBM? And what are the maybe like right reasons and the wrong reasons
Most
to look for
frequently
that?
asked question. This is a great question. I love the way that you asked it, because most people ask me, how much money do I need to be making before I hire a virtual assistant? So I love the way that you framed this, because I actually don't think it's a money thing. I don't think it's a number thing. Like, yes, you need to be making enough money to where you're not literally having money come in and then go right out, and you're dependent on that income for surviving, obviously. So there has to be a threshold for you where you're making enough money to sustain yourself. And then from there, it's different for everyone. For me, I wanted support early on. I liked working in teams. I didn't like feeling alone in what I was doing. I wanted to have support. So the indicator for you, more often than not, is, are you feeling overwhelmed? If you're feeling overwhelmed, then chances are there's probably some aspect of that where you're also feeling alone. Like you're doing it on your own and nobody's there to help you, right? Like, I don't know what to do. I need help. That's what you're saying when you're overwhelmed, is I need help. And when you get to that point where you're just like, oh, I'm just feeling stressed and I'm not like doing as much, or this isn't working the way I wanted it to, then it's time to get help. And it's not always time to get a virtual assistant. Sometimes it is time to get a coach and talk to them about it, or an online business manager, or somebody that can come in and do what you're looking for. So always think about the deliverable. What do I actually need done that's going to make me feel better in my business? What's going to make me feel less stressed, less overwhelmed, more relieved? What is that deliverable besides just, I need a virtual assistant? Why do you need a virtual assistant? What are you going to have them do? What do they need to do to take something off your plate that's going to make you go, whew, that feels so much better? I am 2.5 years into my agency. I just hired a brand new assistant recently because I got a light bulb moment with somebody where I realized I was spending like 2 hours a day in my email, and it was draining me. And I was like, I need somebody to manage my email. I got her in there. I seriously feel like I got like 6 hours a day back. It's crazy. So you have to think about those things of like, what is actually stressing you out in your business, and make sure you bring that forward when you start looking for people to help you. So overwhelm is the first indicator there. I think that's actually the best indicator. There's some other ones too, in terms of like the growth of your business. And if you're wearing a bunch of hats, that's another thing too. Nobody ever, not your virtual assistant, not anybody in your business is ever going to be successful if they're wearing multiple hats. Try to get to wearing one, maybe two hats in your business. If you're wearing all the hats, no matter what, you're spreading your energy and you're leaking energy because you're not honing in on what you do best, your zone of genius, if you will, and channeling your best energy to that. It's like the 80-20 rule, right? You got to put your best energy in, the least amount of energy to get the most amount of profit, right? Every single person in your business should be doing that. Your virtual assistants, whoever you're working with, every single person should also be doing that. So when I come in and optimize people's businesses, I don't just look at the business owner. I look at everything that everyone's doing, and I have everyone fill out that sheet that I was just talking about. What are you doing? Does it drain you or energize you? How much time does it take you? So we can shift roles around and we can shift people around and have them in their zone of genius. And we save so much time and energy just by making little tweaks.
So I love what you said too about the overwhelm, needing help. You know, I see this a lot, and you probably get a lot of people. They are so out of control in their personal life that they're like, I need a virtual assistant, but it's like they're not even in a space where they could even think about like, what is it that I need to hand off to somebody? And can I manage this person? Right. So sometimes you do need a coach, or sometimes you need a team. You need someone to like help with the business stuff and also take care of your own shit at the same time. Like if you're a mess yourself, that is creating a culture for your team. And I've seen this time and time and time again with the founders that I worked with over the years, in my own experience as well. Like if somebody's personal life is an absolute like, about everything, like that is going to translate into the culture. People are going to leave. They're going to be scared. They're going to be stressed. It's going to hold back your business. So like also think about your personal life team. You know, you probably need a therapist. You probably need a productivity coach if you're like messing around. And then you need somebody that's going to come in and like help you sort your business out and actually learn how to run your business like you. And then like, this is how you delegate to somebody in a correct way. We've all had that boss where we're like, they're just like a total mess. We don't feel like we even know whether we're doing a good job or not, or what to do, or like whatever. And we're like, you know, the investment into ourselves is so important.
Absolutely.
And into our business, right? Like we cannot be on an island anymore. And like you said, like most 7-figure businesses that you've seen have very rarely been able to get there on their own. And I'm guessing the ones that did probably weren't happy by the time that they got there.
Yeah, exactly. You got to hit it from every angle. It's not just business. This is a holistic thing, you know? So
yeah. Okay, this has been absolutely fascinating. I think we're going to have a lot more to talk about. So I might hit you up for a round 2 so we can dive deeper into like the actual business side of things. Like I love how your brain works and all the sexy words you were using with me, and really appreciate your time. One of the things I like to ask everybody that comes on the show, for you to define what you believe is living unrestricted.
Wow. Freedom came to mind just then. Freedom for sure. Like, what makes you feel free? That's what I think of when I think of unrestricted, is like, how do you embody freedom? And for me, that is getting to live wherever I want in the world, getting to travel and explore, getting to take time off, getting to work remotely, being supported, feeling loved by myself and other people. Yeah, defining freedom, I think, is really important for people to do. What does that look like for you?
Yeah, love that. Love that. Love that. Okay, my love, thank you for all of this. If people want to find out more about you and Give Back Digital and this amazing work that you do and the amazing support, where do they find you?
Yeah, you guys can check out our website, givebackdigital.com, or you can head over to Instagram or Facebook, just at Give Back Digital. We're hanging out on there.
Amazing. I'll put that all in the show notes as well. I like this, just the time flew by. Such a fascinating story and like such great nuggets that you were dropping on us. So I really appreciate you sharing your wisdom, your journey, being open. I'm sure a lot of women are just going to be like hitting you up now, like, I want to be a virtual assistant. I need a virtual assistant. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Athena. It was really fun. I'm happy I got to come on today.
I hope you have enjoyed these interviews with these amazing women so far. We're going to put a pause on the interviews until the new year, but don't fret. I've got some amazing content dropping over the course of the next couple weeks, which will help you learn a lot of these tools and a lot of these skills that these women have been sharing that have helped them on their journey. So I'm going to be talking about how to balance your body, mind, and how you work for Thrival Mode. This is going to be a 4-part series in the lead up to the new year so you can hit the ground running. So stay tuned. Next week will be part 1, where we'll be talking all about mindset. Thanks so much for tuning into this episode of Unrestricted. If you enjoyed today's episode, please take a minute to leave a review or give me a little shout out on Instagram at athena.simpson. If you'd like more content from me on getting unrestricted, sign up for my newsletter. Well, you'll get an email from me every week with the 3 things that I've been devouring to optimize my life and business. It might include hacks, tips, experiments, resources, books, podcasts, and more, all to help you get more unrestricted. It's totally free and you can unsubscribe at any time. So go ahead and sign up at athenasimpson.com/newsletter.
You best